Well, we're going to talk some more about expanding education freedom. It's such an important topic, and we're just so delighted to have our next speaker who's going to lead a panel of one, and that's Guy Ciarrocchi. I've known Guy for a long time, but let me read you his background. He's a senior fellow with the Commonwealth Foundation. He's also a writer for Broad and Liberty and Real Clear Politics at Real Clear, Pennsylvania, and a 25th season softball coach and county, of course. Guy's Broad and Liberty columns focus on common sense conservative policies and our culture. His Real Clear columns offer insights into Pennsylvania politics and suburbs and strategies to rebuild and grow the Republican Party. Guy has served as Chief of Staff to the Lieutenant Governor, a member of the Congress and State Senator, as CEO of the Chester County Chamber, and a Republican nominee for Congress. In addition to Politico, Guy's columns are syndicated across Pennsylvania. He's a frequent guest and co-host on Philadelphia Talk Radio and across Pennsylvania. He serves on the board of the PA Coalition of Public Charter Schools and Pennsylvania Families for Education Choice, and he's a former aide to our great U.S. Senator Rick Santorum. Please welcome Guy Ciarrocchi.
As I say, after an introduction like that, I have nowhere to go but to let you down. So we're going to have a conversation about school choice, and I want to invite to the stage my friend and the president and CEO of the Pennsylvania Families for Education Choice, Sharon Sedlar. And Sharon and I are going to lead a conversation about grassroots and organizing so that we can have more Pastor Robertsons and more success stories. So please welcome Sharon to the stage. Hello.
Hi. Well, first of all, I'm going to say amen. Amen, Pastor Josh. We're all here for it. So it's a hard act to follow.
It is a hard act to follow, and it's what was inspiring is it's not only a call to action, but he is not only calling us, but he's leading the way. He is leading an effort that is literally rescuing children, and putting in the time and energy behind his words. And that's a good segue to Sharon and her work. And I could go on and on about her background, but I'm going to invite Sharon to do that. I'll just simply say that she is the quintessential mom of the new world, this new era where mothers have stepped forward to not only look after their own children, but to speak and make sure that all of our children are cared for. And so I'm going to invite Sharon to tell you about Pennsylvania Families for Education Choice and what it is they do. And then we're going to talk a little bit about what she has learned as she started this organization out of her home. So Sharon, please share with us your story.
Well, thanks so much for having me today. And thank you all for being here. I appreciate it. My name is Sharon Sedlar. And first and foremost, I am wife to Rob, and I am mom to 6 amazing girls. Teddy, Adele, Georgia, Gabrielle, Bobby, and Virginia. Also, thank you. Also sometimes known as number 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. Yes, I call them by number at times. And I started PA Families for Education Choice, Pennsylvania Families for Education Choice, out of my own experience in the education system. We'll get to that a little bit later. But I realized through that process that parents don't always know what their options are. They don't know who to reach out to. They don't know what their resources are. They don't know how to deal with the school district or whatever the school model is and accessing appropriate services for their children. So I wanted to make sure that they had a safe place to come to, and that was me. I also work with education entrepreneurs, and they're called edupreneurs. And what I do is I help those parents or teachers or administrators or community members in creating those options for students that aren't necessarily private or district run. So it's your hybrid homeschools and your micro schools, things that are kind of grown out of people's homes and people's experience, particularly with COVID. That all has allowed me to turn around and work with some of our legislators in Harrisburg. So you'll see me going through the hallways with families, handing out flyers about their stories and talking to legislators about what kind of change is needed and why.
Is that all? So because 5 years ago, you may not have thought yourself to be here at a conference like this. 5 years ago, you may not have thought you'd be leading a statewide movement of parents, and yet here you are. And so not only is it the good work that your organization do, but it's a testament to you and the work that you've done and the leadership that you've put in. And again, as I say, if it were up to me, the Time magazine would have picked as the person of the year would have been the moms who stepped forward for educational freedom over the last few years because they want more and they want better. And the reason I think you were drawn to that, I know you were called to do it, but I'd like you to share. So if you would, explain this journey that you referenced earlier. You faced challenges in your family, and out of that, you not only went to bat for your kids, but decided, this is my calling. I'm going to fight for other kids and invite other parents to step forward. So explain why and where you reached that moment that this was bigger than your family.
Yeah, so, 6 kids, they're all different. They all have different personalities. And so they all needed different things. So throughout the years, we went to private and we did charter, we did district school, and next year one of my children is going to be homeschooling because it's what they need at the time. Speaking to my journey in advocacy, let's face it, I'm bossy. My mom told me I was bossy my whole life, so now it's coming in handy. So my daughter, Virginia, my baby, is now 13, and we had been to district school for a long time. She was having difficulty in 2nd grade. She was fine all the way through kindergarten and 1st grade, but it became apparent a couple of weeks into the school year that she was terrified of something, and I didn't know what it was until just recently. She stopped going, didn't want to go to school. She had nightmares, headaches, started sleeping with me. I would have to pick her up in the middle of the day or calm her down. I remember one day when the principal literally picked her up and dragged her away from me, and I let that happen. And I was at the mercy of the district system, didn't realize the options that I had had. So 7 months later, she stood in front of me in my dining room, and I still get upset. And she said, "Mom, I can't do this anymore. Please don't make me go back there." And so I saw this little 7-year-old apologizing to me, the person who was supposed to protect her and provide for her, and she was just a shell. There was nothing left. And I knew that if I sent her back to that building, she would shatter. So I told her she didn't have to go back. We found, luckily, Cyber Charter, and she is doing better now. But it made me realize, even me, 6 kids, very assertive, very involved in my community, I didn't know where to go, what to do, or where to turn. And so I want to be able to save another family, another parent, another child from experiencing that heartbreak and that harm that we experienced.
So one of the things, if you become involved in a cause, it's a cause for school choice, it's a cause for parents, and as you begin to meet other parents, as I've done and you've come to do, you're trying to lead a movement, and then you meet real people, and they have real struggles. And if you're lucky, you get the chance to help them. And I was wondering if you could share with us the dozens or hundreds of parents that you've met where you've had success, where you've met a mom who had a challenge and you were able to use your expertise and roll up your sleeves and share with us a success story. Because so often we know the challenges so many of Pennsylvania's kids face, but every once in a while there's a good story, and I thought we could all use a good story, so give us one.
Oh, there is a good story. So I'm going to start this story with a sweet young mom named Kima. She lives in South Philadelphia, and Guy, you're aware of her story. So Kima reached out to me through a national organization. I'm kind of the Pennsylvania parent that helps parents navigate their options. And she said, what am I going to do? I have 3 children. Her oldest two are twins. Her daughter was fine. She was going to Kappa. But her son, she knew based on the environment in the district, the environment in her neighborhood, that it was not going to be a good fit for him. So luckily, we were able to help her find an option, and luckily now her son is doing amazing. But I want to talk about parents and personal experience turned advocates, because Kima, as she testified at a GOP policy hearing, she started it off like this. I'm a Democrat. I'm a die-hard Democrat. You're never going to change that. So let me talk to you about my family. So everybody kind of, giggled and were a little taken aback. But if you met Kima, you would understand that she is a mom fighting for her child. And there was nothing that was going to stop Kima. So she has now turned into a volunteer for Pennsylvania Families for Education Choice as one of my regional parents to spread the good news of all that is education choice. And I look forward to a heck of a lot more Kimas coming my way and Pennsylvania's way to fight for these kids. Yeah.
So Sharon, I'll just take a moment of personal privilege, as Congressman Perry might say. Take a moment of personal privilege. Sharon is sharing the story, but if you will, sharing the kinder, gentler version of Kima. And Sharon and I went back and forth with Kima, and Kima, her son, was an 8th grader getting ready to go to high school. And I grew up in South Philly. In fact, I'm dressed in my old school uniform because I'm going to my reunion tonight. It's our 5-year grade school reunion. Good, all right. So you are paying attention, good. But Kima said to me, Guy, my son will have to go to Southern, which we would call South Philadelphia High School. And she said, if he goes to Southern, he's going to die. He'll either be jumped or harmed, or he'll join a gang so that he can survive, and then he'll wind up dead. I can't let that happen. So I handed Kima off to Sharon, and now he is a freshman at Newman Goretti High School, and it's a success story.
Yes. Thank you for your work.
So, on the other hand, many charter schools have their enrollment capped. Yep. As Senator Dush and the other elected officials here know, there's talk of capping enrollment in charter schools across the whole state, limiting the number of cyber schools, limiting the number of scholarships. Together we work and do my work at the Commonwealth Foundation to bring about lifeline scholarships to rescue more children. But the reality is there are limits. There are children who are at schools where parents don't want them to be, schools that are failing. Kids who do have to go to Southern. So occasionally, Sharon, we meet people who we can't help. And I was wondering if you could share what it means when you deal with a parent and you've run out of options. There is no charter school that has space. There is no scholarship. And so that child wakes up and goes to a school that mom doesn't want.
Yeah, and that does happen. And it's heartbreaking. And as an aside, I've noticed that the more financially distressed the family, or the more special education services that are needed by that family, the more difficult it is for that family to get relief for their child. The wheels turn very slowly. You will have children who are stuck in a certain school for 5 years with a diagnosis before they make it to an alternate program that they should have had before. And by that time, they're a 7th grader with kindergarten reading skills. So that sets them back. And then what do? We lower the bar, they graduate, proficiencies at 35% nationwide, I think. Some schools have 0% proficiency. I could talk all day, but I'm gonna talk about a story. So there is a parent who, due to house situations, had to move her family in February of a child's sophomore school year. The parent dutifully told the school district, hey, we moved, here's our new address, and the school district did I say February? In February, halfway through the school year, said, you can't come here anymore. You need to go to your new school district. So this child in her sophomore year, who had already had significant trauma from other situations, not only her living situation, was uprooted, and they said, you have to go to this other district school. Well, the mom said, no, that other district school is not going to be healthy for her for a variety of reasons, and I'm not going to send her there. Private school was out of reach. Charter schools were capped. She was in cyber charter. Now, cyber charter, 2 of my kids are in cyber charter, is amazing for the children that it serves adequately, that thrive in that environment. This child was different. She did not thrive in that environment. 6 months later, she was in a psychiatric facility for severe depression because she had no alternative in Pennsylvania for safe education for that child because she moved. So luckily now the child is doing fine. She's still in a cyber charter program because, again, limits. Good news is, for next year, which is her senior school year, she's on a waiting list for a brick and mortar charter. A waiting list. She doesn't get into that charter, where does she go? To a district school that is deemed to be unsafe by her mom. Cyber charter, providing accommodations as needed. She's doing fine, but how long is she going to do fine? So my heart breaks every time one of those stories comes my way, and I am dealing with 4 of them right now. Very similar circumstances where there are special needs and nowhere for the child to go, or the child is trapped in that district.
Yeah. That's why you created your organization, because we need policy changes, because there are communities where the schools aren't performing.
Right.
But even in communities where schools are performing, there are children that need options. And we should all be working towards the reality, changing the reality, to where every child has access to a school where he or she can reach their potential. Because every child needs that opportunity. And we all benefit, whether your children are grown or whether you don't have children. We all benefit when a child gets to a school that works. And that's why it's so heartbreaking.
In the best interest by those parents.
Right.
We're the ones who are up with them at night. We're the ones who see the after effects. When my daughter would come home from school and she wouldn't be able to function the rest of the night, something was wrong. But I would go to the school and they'd say, she's fine when she's here. Really? Tell that to the ball of a child cuddled up next to me in bed every night for 7 months. We need to have agency. We need to be able to make those decisions. Not the government, not the district, not anyone, us.
So
Thank you.
Come on. If we can't applaud for parents making decisions, the one thing should unite us. So now that you've been doing this and you've taken this mission on and you travel across the state and you go to different hearings, you even testified before Congress.
I did.
What are what are the criticisms? What's the pushback? Because I've always felt, we could go to the Perkins next door and stop the people there and ask them, what do you think? Shouldn't parents decide what school's best? And everybody at the Perkins probably say yes. But the politics of it stops it. So what are the criticisms? What are the pushbacks that you've encountered when you offer sort of parent-centered, common-sense education?
Yeah, so first of all, that if you're pro-education choice, you're anti-district. No, district is one of the choices. It's all kids, all options, all the time. So that's the first one. That really gets me. The second one, though, is that somehow parents choosing an education for their child that may be outside of the district system defunds public education. Sorry, that's crap. All right? It doesn't. When you take the charter student out of the district system and put them in a charter school, that district still retains an average of 30% of that child's funding. Right? When you have ESA programs that are, by the way, steamrolling across the United States, we're getting our butts beat. They may send $5,000, $7,000, $8,000 that follows the child to their school of choice. that school still retains a portion of that funding. The amount of per-student funding actually increases at the district level when you deploy choice strategies. And don't even get me started about the increased results gap achievement in Arizona and Florida. Not to mention the amount of families we are losing in Pennsylvania as a Commonwealth to those pro-education choice states. So it really is a state issue. It's a state feasibility issue, it's a family issue, and it's a survivability of Pennsylvania issue.
No, it's an interesting point you make, because it's not only an education issue, it's an economic development issue. And we have a governor that, to quote a phrase, he's tired of losing to free in Ohio.
You took my phrase.
Oh, I'm sorry.
I
We
was
can have
getting
it
to that.
back. But, you know, one of the ways we compete with Ohio, Florida, Texas, is making sure that every child has an education, can enter the workforce, and be a future entrepreneur, and take, you know, a mom and dad can lead a family. And when they get shortchanged on education, that doesn't happen. So if in this audience, or the folks watching that will see this on cable or where else, if there's another Sharon, if there's a mom and dad or a grandmom at home that says, I'm going to help pick up the charge, I'm going to be active in my community, my school board. So what's advice you would give them on how they could join with you and pick up the charge in their community?
Well, first of all, Google me and find me, and I will find a place for you. I will help you find who your legislator is. I will help you find how to message. I will help you get your story out there. If you don't want your story out there, that's okay. It's dangerous for some parents to put their story out there in that community, because the backlash from community members who don't understand education choice feel that you're telling them that their choice for district school is wrong. We all know what the trolls are like on social media. You have parents who are brave enough to bring their stories out there, and then they're told that they're neglectful parents, or they didn't try hard enough. Well, yes, we did, and now we have a kid who's damaged because we tried so hard and left them in a district school for 7 months while we tried to work things out. So there are people that listen. I wouldn't be on this stage today if it wasn't for Senator Scott Martin. Senator Scott Martin is the one who saw my letter. I sent about 60 of them. Who saw my letter and said, Sharon, I need to know more about your story. Next thing I know, I'm testifying. Next thing I know, I'm making a space for education choice and parental advocacy in Pennsylvania. Next thing I know, I'm here with Guy Ciarrocchi. So it's possible, and there are those in legislature who do want to listen and do want to hear your stories, but we need to make sure that the parents feel safe to be able to provide those stories. And we need to make sure that the legislators are being brought the stories so that they can hear what school choice is, what's needed for school choice in Pennsylvania.
So to put a fine point on it, just, you know, free, no extra charge, some data points, right? The largest school district of the 500 is Philadelphia. There are about 108,000 students in the school district of Philadelphia. There are now about 170,000 children attending a charter school of one form or another. It's now, you know, 1.5 Philadelphias. The number of children in cyber schools alone is nearly 70,000. That's 3 times the size of the Pittsburgh school district. Parents are looking for options. And as big as those numbers are, understand and share this. There are about 40,000 children who are on waiting lists to get in charter schools, because the charter school enrollment's capped. So about 40,000. So almost 2 Pittsburgh school districts worth of kids whose parents have stepped forward and said, I'd like them to be somewhere else, but there's no room for them. So they're at a school that's not their choice. So Sharon, what would you say is the first thing someone should do if they wanted to make an impact with their legislator? What's that first thing that they would do to try and go in and talk to a legislator or be involved in their community?
Well, do your research for sure. And there's a lot of different ways that you can do that research so that you're educated and informed when you go in to speak with them. Understand that they have a limited amount of time. So you have to have your bullet points, you have to have your ask. Speaking to people in the office, the staffers, is okay, I won't say it's as important as speaking to a legislator, but it is very important that you treat everyone in that office with respect. If we go in there and we start, pounding our fists and yelling, that's not going to get us anywhere. And might I add, the last time I was in Harrisburg, I had 2 parents accompany me through the hallways. They were Democrats. There is a way to speak to Democrats, and I'll tell you another thing. One of the parents said to me, I am a single issue voter, school choice. Yes, Every Kid just put out a survey, and I'm going to tell you, they said that most voters in Pennsylvania are more likely to vote for legislators who support law, allowing PA kids to attend any public school in the state. 62% say change and rethink is necessary, not the status quo. 55% believe in open enrollment. So when you talk about being sick of losing to friggin' Ohio, I'm sick of our kids living and losing in an education environment that isn't suited to help them. So there are a lot of resources and a lot of avenues. Legislators do want to listen. There's a lot of ways to affect change, support each other in our own communities. I talked about regional parents a few minutes ago. I have parents across the United States, not yet, but I have parents across Pennsylvania who are willing to take the charge, help out parents in their area, in their locale. Just reach out. Help is there.
One of the things we've worked on together was Lifeline scholarships. For those of you that followed the budget last year, remember the budget didn't really finish by its constitutionally required June 30th. We didn't finish till December because we fought about Lifeline scholarships. And if you take away all the politics and all the numbers, the amount of money that would have been spent on Lifeline scholarships, Harrisburg probably loses that somewhere in a paper shuffle today while we're at that conference. But about 20,000 students could have had the choice to move to another school. It's literally called Lifeline because in doing the work at the Commonwealth Foundation, we thought that was the best way to describe it. A lifeline to rescue a child. So the whole budget shut down last year over the right to rescue what were literally in the legislation as the members that are here, that we're fighting alongside and doing the work in the trenches, to help the poorest kids trapped in the worst schools. Not the worst schools that I would define or any of you would define, what the Department of Education would define as the worst schools, the bottom 15%. Could the poorest kids in those schools get the ability to get a scholarship and go somewhere else? So we're back again, Sharon and I and her parents, Commonwealth Foundation and other good organizations and the legislators in this room for a simple question is why can't we help the poorest kids in the worst schools to do that? So I thank you for sharing your story today and thank you for the work that you do and that we're going to continue to do together.
Well, I have a question for you though. I have a question for you because it's only fair. What's your why? What is Guy Ciarrocchi's why?
Wow.
Yeah.
A lot of whys. The whys were, in the beginning, the idea that it seemed bizarre to me that we forced people to go to school because of where they lived. It seemed bizarre to me that people had to pay twice, that you paid your property taxes. And as I grew and got older and learned more, it seemed to me this was not, to borrow a phrase from Pastor Robertson, I mean, in a sense, it's a civil rights issue. To me, it's the moral cause. It's an academic issue. It's an economic issue. And it is a moral issue. There are children going to schools that are abject failures. And I feel drawn to that as a parent. And as a softball coach, as I joke, I'm required to mention I'm a softball coach in all my forums.
We all know.
We all know. And my Little League team has a game tomorrow, and my tournament girls play on Sunday. Check your local listings. But, as I now am with a group of girls that I've been coaching since they were fourth and fifth graders, who I was their coach for 5 months before we closed down for 2 weeks to flatten the curve. That's the why. I did 4 months of Zoom practices with them. And they taught me how to change my name and put backgrounds, which was very good. Do Zoom classes with fourth graders. It's very helpful. But now they're freshmen. And that's the why. It's that, it sounds it, but it's every child should have the opportunity to succeed. America's about giving the next generation to do better. And that's why. With school choice, we can do that.
We can.
Thank you.
We can. Thank you.
Thank you all.